Hi, everybody. Welcome back. And this is HR After Dark. I am Marcia O'Connor.
And I'm Meghan Papaleo. And today we have an awesome guest joining us, Colleen Bertrand.
Welcome,
Colleen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And thanks. I am so excited to talk to you about all things wellness.
Yeah.
We're going to touch a lot of topics today.
We're going to touch a lot of topics today.
Yep.
And I think we're just going to start with just 3 breaths.
Okay.
Just 3
Let's
breaths
do it.
to ground.
All right.
So
Do I need to move?
we don't need to move. If you're stable and you can put your feet down flat on the floor, I recommend doing that.
So a lot of us
Just feel sometimes a little overwhelmed, and so just connecting to what's stable. If you want, you can also interlace your fingers, bring your palms up, and just a nice big stretch over to one side. And a nice big stretch over to the other side.
Get stuck this way.
Come back to center. Come back. Keep breathing. Bring your hands behind your head now.
Okay.
And we're going to take a little bit of a twist. So twist to one side. And twist to the other side. And then come back to center.
I haven't felt that muscle in a while.
Rub your palms together now.
hands
And if you
off.
have glasses on, take them off.
Just like Simon says.
And once you feel a little bit of heat, you're going to hold the palms over your eyes. And we're just taking a slow breath in. Exhale, let it go. And again, a slow breath in. Exhale, let it go. One more inhale. And go ahead and just let your hands come down. Here we are.
Here we are. All right,
Here we
class is
are.
back on. All right.
It's a good reminder to put your feet on the floor.
So, yeah, that connection
grounded.
to stability, just literal connection to the ground, very stabilizing.
Yeah.
Breathing, also getting the diaphragm moving.
Yeah.
Stretch overhead, it opens up the intercostal muscles. That
Ooh,
brings in some energy.
I like
and
that
then the
word.
palming of the eyes, we use our eyes a lot
Yeah.
with devices.
Yep.
And we get a lot of eye strain. And so any sort of exercises to just kind of refresh your senses, even just staring out of a window,
Oh, I love doing that.
looking at a plant, something just like a soft, diffuse gaze every hour, just refresh.
Okay.
Just a way to refresh.
I call that cloud gazing. Love cloud gazing.
Yeah, when Marcia cloud gazes, we all say to get your big notebook because we know she's going to come back with all of these ideas. We're like,
Ideas.
let's get our big notebooks today because we know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it gets you in connection with a different part of your brain.
Yep.
There you go.
Every time.
Yeah.
And it's like I time myself for 20 minutes. I'll just sit on a step and I'll just look outside and I just let go. Don't think of your phone, watch, bills, nothing. And I just look at like what's comes to mind. And, I try to be creative and out of the box thinking. And I have so many great ideas that pop up out of that. Did that a lot when I was a kid.
It's a great strategy. It reminds me of when you get the great idea in the shower.
Yes.
Or when you're driving, anything that just sort of like gets, your conditioned personality, your ego, just like a little bit off to the side, creativity flows through.
Oh, it's the best.
It is the best.
Yeah. And then you feel recharged without taking a nap. And then you do your thing again. But it has to be, I try to do it for 20 minutes.
It's a clarity break.
It's a clarity break.
We use EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, and it's something that you're supposed to have a clarity break on your calendar every week. And to step outside the day-to-day and just have nothing in front of you and just think.
It's like a mini retreat.
Yes. In
Yeah.
your head. Yeah, it's great.
Exactly.
It is really good.
Talk to us about what you do.
So I work with leaders and organizations in meeting their goals, not at the expense of their employees' well-being. So looking at it as something that works together
Yep.
and not at odds with each other. Sounds obvious.
Yeah, it does. But, we have a lot of listeners out there and they're listening to this and they all love wellness, but they don't always how to put it into play. They don't know to hear those key words that you're needed, but they might not know. What are some of those key words that you hear that you're needed, but sometimes the CEO doesn't hear it?
So the words or the energy?
Both.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the words are there. Mm-hmm. I think they get confusing. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes the energy and the actions behind them, sometimes there's like a little bit of a gap between them.
I'm sure.
And that's that's one of the issues. And this is why, words sometimes shift. Yeah. So we say wellness, and it's like, wait, are we talking about employee benefits? Are we talking about EAPs? What are we talking about? And then we start using words like well-being. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, wait a second. What does that mean? So I think at the most concrete level, it means relating to people.
Yeah.
And so usually that means slowing down, listening, which can be really tricky.
Agreed.
We're usually in a very doing sort of mode. And so sometimes we just need to slow down and check in and make sure that the other person is really, we're connected with where we're going. The ladder of inference, I don't know if you've ever seen that model. So I had a coach years ago, who really brought this model into my heart. Chris Argus, he's an OD professor, late OD professor. But basically you've got facts on the bottom of the ground, and then you've got a ladder, and you're moving up the ladder and making inferences about what these facts mean.
Yeah.
Most of us climb up the ladder, and we don't come back down to facts and check in with the other person.
Interesting.
And so I think that's actually a big part of the well-being.
Yeah.
And not making assumptions about, well, my staff needs to have a meditation class. My staff needs to. These are all lovely perks, but not necessarily. So I think checking in with your employees and the people you work with and how they feel cared for, how they work best.
Yeah, we just did that yesterday too.
We did.
We surveyed our group to say, like, what does that mean to you? What do you want to see out of a wellness program? Because what one person may need will be different than another. So I think asking the team is one of the best things you can do.
I think asking, there's another piece, and I would love to check in with you guys what your opinion is or how you see this. If you have a position of power, often people might not tell you how they really feel. There's a
hands down.
Yeah.
It's one of the tricky parts of being a leader is
every day.
You can't really get people to tell you how they really feel
Because they're vulnerable.
It's very vulnerable. There's a power differential. And so there's ways in which leaders can become safer to be told things that they might not like, or maybe it's just unexpected.
I think it's harder for people to tell people in person to see their face. And so I have this thing, usually it's my 5 o'clock walk and talk, where I'm going walking. So if you want to talk to me, we're going to do a walk and talk. And I will give you a full hour. I will give you 100% attention because there's no computer in front of me. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm just talking to you. All I'm doing is counting my steps and looking at my watch, And ironically, I do think most people are very honest on those walk and talks because they're not seeing my reaction. They're not seeing how I'm looking at things. Just like your own kid growing up, right? And I got more out of my son at nighttime when he didn't see my reaction versus during the daytime when he would look at my face. And I was like, what else is bugging him? And I would constantly go in, well, what else? And what else? And you finally got down to like, oh, that's what happened today. That's why you're down. You know what I mean? But you have to do it with your own team as well. But going back to what you said, checking in, I agree with you, but we're all going a mile a minute. And if you do not schedule that, it will not happen. Because you have to be very conscious with your time. Because what happens is a month flies by and you want to check in, but sometimes you're so scheduled that you forget to do that. And I always try to tell people, I try to check in with one of my team members at least once a day, at least once. And just if I'm going to pick up food or whatnot, I will call somebody saying, how you doing? What's going on? But not everybody does that. And then what happens, that check-in takes harder, but you got to make it a priority.
I think that's such a great point. There's a few things, starting with that not intense sort of face-to-face, like tell me how you really feel. Even as a parent, like you said, with a teenager in the back seat or, and it's dark, they don't see a shocked face.
Right.
And you do your best to be a safe person to tell the truth to. I think it's great. And then the scheduling thing, it sounds like you're building a rhythm to your day, week, month, quarter, year. And that sort of living in rhythm, we're recording this on Earth Day, is thinking about how does nature operate?
Yeah.
It operates in rhythm, not according to a calendar necessarily.
Right.
But we know that summer follows spring. We know there's a pretty predictable, progression of things. Human nature doesn't change much. And so technology, we're in a time where we have just so much information and it's exciting.
Yeah.
And it's scary for a lot of people. And
agreed.
What doesn't change though is human nature and the dynamics. And so that, I feel like that's sort of my sweet spot.
Yes.
Is sort of that high touch place. Yep. And it's a bridge. One of your values is integration. High for me. Integration and collaboration.
Collaboration.
Very huge. Mm-hmm. And collaboration, it's a pretty tall order. You need a lot of trust.
And we're hybrid. And so it's harder to have that because you assume everybody's doing their job because they say they are doing their job. And you do the best you can to say, yep, if you say it gets done, it's going to get done. But it is hard as a leader because you have expectations. And, and I'm a different generation than some of my Z's, and so it's hard to put that across, but I do work at it. I have people that tell me I need to work on it sometimes too, but I do think they get more vulnerable when a change of seasons happen. So when you have like winter to spring, I like checking in more at people. Same with like fall and winter, because the people for some reason are much more vulnerable at those times because that's a change in the world right now. And there's a lot of things at home happening too. So I like checking in and saying, hey, how you doing? What's going on? I haven't heard from you, haven't seen you, just making sure you're okay. Yeah. And that takes time to do, but it's the change of seasons I do the most of my check-ins, actually.
I love that check-ins. And something I wanted to maybe bring in is the power of meetings and the power of how we connect together. We have a lot of ways to connect.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, not that very intense one-on-one connection. That's where texting and sometimes the asynchronous connections can be super helpful. But how do you use in-person connection in meetings to actually build culture? And I would love to just hear a little bit about how O'Connor Group uses gathering, and I feel like it's a huge, it's an opportunity.
Oh yeah.
And when it's not done well, people can walk away and think, wow, that could have been an email. Not here,
right.
But in many places. Many places, people are going from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting.
A lot of people are.
Very, very taxing on our human system. You really just can't be fresh for that
It's draining.
It's very draining.
Yeah, I get it. And that's why I think it's harder when you are working at home. You're so intense. You know, when it's all first started, people were like, well, how do I charge in to go to the bathroom? I'm like, I said, no. You don't charge in for that. You just go to the bathroom. And I said, and if you have so many clients, you just divvy up your time. I said, don't be so specific about this stuff. I said, it's more of a generalization of your time. And I said, but now you know, they really have known how they spend their time by working at home versus working in the office. You know, before it was an automatic given and I can do all this at home. It's like, nope, I put my 40 hours in, I'm done for the week. I also think it's not that they don't want to do more work. I think that they're mentally exhausted. And because when you're at the Zooms all day and all, it's much different than doing like this. This is fun, pleasant, you leave positive and all too. And that's why we try to get together as much as possible with events or dinners or because once we're together, it's like kumbaya, you know, but then it's like, okay, we'll see you next month. And you're like, oh, okay. I'm glad I'm paying rent. You know, and it's tough for me as a CEO, and I'm sure other CEOs feel the same way. But I understand that and I appreciate it. And I'm the same way. I used to get mad at my old employer and say, why am I coming in the office just for a meeting we can do on Zoom? That to me makes no sense. So I get it. It just, I think what's missing is that connectivity. And I think people are very, I don't know, they don't have that sense of safeness either. They feel a lot more vulnerable and all too because they don't know what's going on. And FOMO is definitely real. But
I think it doesn't help having people in so many states. But one thing that works for us is that we try not to just talk at people during meetings. Whether there's an agenda or not, it's always important to add other people's thoughts and opinions and ask them during the meeting, but also ask who wants to run the meeting. Now, so that can't always be the case, of course, but during COVID, like in the height of COVID, we had a daily check-in. And everybody in the company was responsible for leading one of the meetings. And they could put their own theme behind it. They could, you know, just feel like they were empowered to bring everybody together for a reason and not just because it was on the calendar. So I think it's important, like one of our main core values, like we talked about, is collaboration, and having that be the center point for our meetings is very important.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And I think also, too, and where you're coming at wellness is definitely like a hot topic. It's like one of like the top 3 things of benefits that people are looking for. But I think you're right. Wellness is a big word. It's like HR, big word. And exactly, there's so many divisions within HR. It's like, what exactly do you want to be known for? So how do people basically hire someone like you and your services to come into a company? You know, how can our listeners out there are always looking for good people that do what you do. You know, how do you basically get set up and get yourself out there? What are you doing right now?
It's a great question. So the word integration means a ton to me because that's the other thing that has happened with wellness is we can't really see how that works in with the rest of business and everything that's being done. And so I look at it as more of a how things are done.
Yeah.
And not just what is being done, because the what is really, really important, that it's attuned to the culture, the business, you know, where the life cycle they are, what kind of business they have. This sort of like healthy culture, unhealthy or toxic culture, it's just not helpful. It's not realistic. And so I would just say anybody listening to our conversation that's like, you know, this could be something that's interesting to me. It starts with a conversation with me. And so it's like a half hour, get on the phone, I listen, I ask a couple questions. One thing I would say is I'm a slower processor. And so I listen and take in a ton of information verbally, physically, even my intuition. Turn it around a day, I will come back with so many observations and further questions. And in that conversation, you know, the worst case scenario is, you know what, this is not really a good fit, but I can recommend somebody who could work with you. The other option is I clarify something for you and you have something actionable and you're doing it yourself. Or it could be we do a project together And so the collaborative consulting model
Yep.
laid out by Peter Block, that's really the kind of work I do. So we're in it shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
I'm walking through a process with the leader. There's going to be individual actions that probably the leader
Yep.
is going to take.
Yep.
But there's also organizational processes that can just be shifted.
Yep.
So it's small interventions at all levels.
Got it.
Whereas wellness also was very focused on individual behaviors and responsibilities,
Yep.
which I applaud. But if you think of culture as like a pickling brine,
Yep.
and you take a cucumber and you put it in pickling brine, it becomes a pickle.
A pickle. Yeah.
And so if you look at burnout, if there's a workplace where there's a lot of burnout and you keep your interventions and focuses on individual behaviors and you don't address what the brine is, you're going to have like limited success.
Oh, yeah.
Can we talk about burnout for a second? Because
Yeah.
it's come up a couple of times. And is there what would you say your key strategies to prevent burnout for different, I know it's a loaded question, I'm sorry, with all levels of the workplace, like not just the leadership team, but thinking about someone who maybe has been doing the same job for 5 years and they just are ready to move on. So what do you think from a prevention strategy?
One thing I want to just slow down a little bit is burnout is used so much, just like wellness.
Yeah.
And so someone could be stressed and they just say they're burned out. Someone could be depressed. Someone could have a work addiction.
Yeah.
Or another addiction. So there's a lot of overlap. I'm not a clinical person, so I make it really clear that you could have actually an issue that should be addressed by another type of professional. So I keep that in the conversation. My view of burnout is it's a manifestation of disconnection, which sounds very philosophical, but I think of it as a disconnect from your body.
Yeah.
We can override hunger, thirst. We can get very focused. So that's one of the disconnects that happens. The other disconnect can be with our emotional life. And our emotions are life energy. And when we start to like cut off certain emotions and feeling those emotions, it starts to deaden us and numb us out a bit.
Yeah, I bet it does.
Then there's a disconnection between your heart and your mind. And you could be like, I've gone to college and I majored in finance. I'm working in banking. That was my experience. My heart was not in it. My head was in it. My investment was in it. But there was a disconnection. So I think we listen to burnout. We don't try to stamp it out. We take some time, and it can be a great way to get clear on some ways that you can connect.
With all of our leaders listening today, how would you identify someone that may be experiencing burnout at some form of it?
Such a good question. I think when you move into apathy or cynicism, I think that is when burnout that's where the alarm bell goes off. That is the alarm bell. So that numbness and powerlessness has been building for a very long time, and it turns to apathy and cynicism. And that's when you get the pickling brine, and it starts to spread. And so if you start seeing that on your team, you start experiencing it yourself, that's when you got to reach out.
Yeah,
so that connection also is interpersonal connection.
Absolutely.
Reach out.
Yep.
Don't, you can't take care of this on your own. Yeah. I mean, no one can do things for you. That's there's paradoxes. Yeah. Nobody can do your work for you, but you can't do it all alone.
No.
So, I don't know.
I agreed.
I have one more question. Sorry.
No,
I
it's
feel
great.
like this is something else that triggers people in the workplace is change. It could be the smallest change. It could be something, major going on. But can you kind of go into the nervous system at work and how people are affected by change?
Yeah. The first thing I want to say is our nervous system is our protection system. So I want to normalize it. It is here to keep me safe. It's also a way of keeping me in the safety zone, which means my highest growth and potential is often limited by my nervous system. And so getting comfortable with discomfort and ambiguity is going to be a key. And there are people who are going to be triggered by different things. And so this is where a trauma-informed workplace, and just, again, we're not trying to be clinicians and psychologists, but just having an awareness of how humans can be, how humans can react.
Yeah.
There can be a fight response, which could be, aggressiveness, passive aggressiveness. There's a lot of shutdown that happens. People start fading out. You start seeing it. That's where sort of checking in with some questions there. But it makes it hard. It makes change hard. It makes growth hard. I want to tie it back to emotions a little bit. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, in those stages of grief, as a culture, this is maybe a stereotype, but most of us are just not very comfortable with emptiness and loss and grief. But it's actually a part of the human experience.
I'm in that category. I fall in that category.
That you're uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
Welcome to the human experience. Who would want that? But here's the beautiful thing. If you can allow yourself to go through it, that's where all the life happens. Yeah. Also, when we get stuck in, we want to avoid grief or emptiness. Unfortunately, there's some bad actors out there who are conflict entrepreneurs who are like, you have been victimized. And so it turns into a grievance. And so a lot of us, instead of actually going through the loss, we actually can get really stuck for a period of time where we go into grievance. Or resentment. And again, resentment, all of it is a part of the human experience, but we don't want to stay in any place too long. We don't want to get stuck.
It's true. It's amazing how much we do, though.
It is. And I think this is so important just where we are in the world. This is a really important topic. And I think that any company, no matter 5 people or 500,000 people, would benefit from services like yours. And so how could people reach out to get in touch with you? Where can they find you?
I can be found on LinkedIn. Do you have show notes that you'll include some things too?
Yeah, it gets transcribed.
I've got a website, ColleenBertrand.com. That's probably the easiest. There's a contact page. You can schedule time with me there. Reach out to me for a conversation, and then we can go from there.
Don't you feel calm?
I do.
Yeah.
I feel like I felt like when the Pope was visiting. Calm, relief. I did. I felt like calm.
That was a huge compliment, that right there.
It was very calm back, was it 2015? It was a calm time for everybody. Everybody was at peace.
Your presence in general, though, is
relaxing.
just like, when you say you're really listening and you're present and you're processing it, your calmness is
very apparent.
Is on us as well.
I'm so glad to hear that, because I love working with people, and I really believe in what I do.
Yeah.
And so it's really not just me putting myself out there. It's like, no, this stuff really works.
Yeah, it does work.
You heard us before we started.
Yeah.
You were probably like, huh?
Yeah, like, what coffee did these guys drink today? It is HR after dark. We didn't spike it,
Yeah, we didn't spike anything today.
No, we didn't.
Well, what happens is we talk, we're having 2 separate conversations, but we know what the other person is talking about. So instead of just stopping and having one, we just go from topic to topic halfway through it.
Yeah.
I love those types of relationships, though, to be honest. The nonlinear relationships where you just get in tune so much and you really can. It's like it's thinking together.
Yeah.
And we can't do that with that many people.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
Right?
I try to do that with my husband, and he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, Marcia would know what I was talking about.
Oh, I love it. I said that's the best. That's so great.
We'll be very calm the rest of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This has been great.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
This
Thank you
was
for
phenomenal.
having
There's
me.
so many topics I could go through with you, but I
Bring
do
me
think
back. We'll do something.
Yeah, I do think it'd be beneficial for any of our listeners to reach out to Colleen. For anybody that needs some type of clarity in the workplace, I think this would be a perfect fit for you. And I'll let you wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you again, Colleen. Love seeing you. Great job, Megan, as always. Everybody, I'm Marcia O'Connor. This is HR After Dark. And don't forget, Megan Papaleo. We'll see you next time.